This is Rudo Radio coming to you from the 559.
Hello and welcome to Rudo Radio, SB Nation and Cage Side Seats weekly wrestling podcast. I am Nick Bond, joined as ever by Mr. Marc Normandin. Marc, how are you?
Don't call me that.
I bet you're just thankful I didn't call you something else that we talked about.
Don't do that either.
The Brother Basic gave me a really great idea.
Be a silent host. Let's see how that works.
Be a star, not a bully. Because that's bullying you, threatening to use that name for you.
I'm just out here in catering, and you're dumping soup all over me.
Yeah, I'm the big guy. To me, just to jump right in, Hell in a Cell felt like when a bunch of kids try to put on a play and they give you the montage of everybody screwing up and nobody getting anything right, and then when they actually do the play, the adrenaline just takes them right through and everything works out okay, and you're like, oh, they did such a great job, that was a lot of fun. That's what Hell in a Cell felt like the first episode of Hey Arnold, where they're dressed as fruits and then they get lost and they come back and they fix everything. That's what it felt like.
It is hard to overstate how much of a dog shit episode of Raw we had to experience a week ago.
Yeah.
And the gap between that episode of Raw where you had no idea if they knew what they were doing and what they actually managed at Hell in a Cell. Like, part of it is, yes, they lowered everyone's expectations and then they exceeded those expectations, but it was also good.
But I don't know how much they lowered the expectation, because I think a lot of people understood that the matches might be good. I think the problem for Raw, and we'll talk about Raw later, because it was a good episode, so we might as well talk about it while it's good and not makes us talk 30 minutes about how bad it is. I thought they did a good job of actually telling stories within the matches, which was always going to be okay, but I don't think it was so much that we thought it was going to be a bad pay-per-view. We thought it was going to not be able to have any story to it. And all of the matches, especially the Hell in a Cell matches, worked in the story really well.
I guess good timing that they figured out that narrative is supposed to be part of this, but it'd be nice if they did it the rest of the time. Though Monday was, a step in the right direction. So what was the big match for you?
I think that for me, the best of the three cage matches, Hell Cell matches, was the Rollins-Owens one. The Rollins-Owens one felt like it did the best job of both being a really good match and having a bunch of moving parts, which is also a lot of the fun of a Hell in a Cell match if it's done correctly, because it's like the gimmick of all gimmick matches. It's in and of itself a gimmick. It's the best they could have done with what they have. Like, no blood, and you can't really do anything crazy outside, because you have the women's match, which I think had the highest highs, but it also had a couple of things that didn't go perfectly, and not just the tables at the end, though I think we both agree Sasha is never going to weigh enough to go through one of those tables, so we're not entirely sure whether or not that was intentional, just to be super brutal. Yeah, I thought the Owens-Rollins match was the best match, but I think that Sasha-Charlotte had the potential to be the best match on the card, and I think that alone justified it as the main event of the actual night, where it was the last match on, and it closed the show.
Yeah, I think the women's one and Rollins-Owens were about even. I'm kind of docking imaginary points from Rollins-Owens in my head just because, Rollins turned into Reigns in terms of being able to absorb damage and fight off multiple opponents at the same time, and it was kind of weird. It's not really a thing that he does. And it wasn't bad, it was just we just saw that with Roman too. It's one of the only instances where the Hell in a Cell matches kind of overlapped each other in terms of what they were doing. It's like, oh, you can't put Roman Reigns down no matter what Rusev does to him. Oh, you can't put Seth Rollins down no matter what you do to him. And they eventually did, but it's still the amount of times it took that he was able to like get up and keep going were kind of ridiculous. Again, not bad. I really liked it. And Sasha Charlotte, like, yeah, the table spot that was weird for me was when Charlotte just kind of like, fell backwards into one.
Oh, that's the one I'm talking about. Like, I think the other one, but that, like, the crowd was so hyped, and they just seemed like they were, I don't want to cast aspersions, it seemed like they were a little gassed at that point. They'd been going for a while, and I think they just kind of, I don't know what happened, but it kind of lost momentum. It didn't go off the rails, but the ride got a little shaky, and I think that, and some other stuff, made it so that I think overall, personally, I liked Rollins, because I always like to think that the WWE, although they don't say it, has like that Japanese concept of the fighting spirit, where you can just keep going on this like imaginary idea of self-empowerment. And I feel like Rollins taps into like once you become a WWE babyface, you get this like extra cachet. You get like a second life when your character dies. It's like, no, I'm not actually dead. Gotcha. And I think that's it. So I put that as almost like a tax on a match like that, so it didn't even faze me. Like, people mentioned it, that he'd look Superman, but it didn't really register with me until people mentioned it. I don't disagree with it, but it never really bothered me, I guess.
See, I thought the fighting spirit moments were more when, like, he and Owens were just repeatedly kicking each other in the head, and neither of them was falling down until they both just fell down. That's more like fighting spirit to me, where it's like, oh man, I'm not feeling great, but I'm gonna keep going just for a little bit longer, and then they both pass out. But the fighting off two people at once and all that was, it's entertaining, but like stretched a little too long. And that's what happens with these Hell in a Cell matches a lot of the time. In like the interest of making them feel as epic as they tell us they are, they tend to overdo something, whether it's length, which is what Roman Reigns and Rusev's issue was. I thought that was a really good match. I think it would have been a much better match if it was like 5 to 7 minutes shorter.
Oh, 100% agree. That was like a 30-minute match, and it was a really good, like, 20-minute match, which is incredible for two guys that big. I thought it was going to be a good Haas fight, and they delivered as far as I was concerned. But, yeah, I also agree. It was super duper long. You were like, okay, we get it. Also, the spear, while cool, isn't as cool as the other one he hit. And I think that's what they were trying to play off of. Plus, it just came at the end where it was just like, okay, it's his knockout punch. But I don't feel like it was totally earned.
I do think the best brutal ending was actually the table with Sasha, where like I don't know if she was supposed to go through it because it might have been better that she didn't.
Twice.
Yeah, hits her twice onto the table, and like Charlotte was throwing her into it, and it was like that brutal It didn't have like that beautiful symmetry of wrestling moves. It was just Charlotte like you go there now. You live there now. As she hurls her at the table in her bad back, and I don't know, it worked for me because it's like Sasha. It's the story they should have been telling this whole time, all these weeks, is that Charlotte, regardless of whether her and Sasha ever were actually friends, is so willing to keep this title that she will brutalize and destroy and risk the career of this person that she works with. And that was on display in this match. It was so clear that, Sasha was fighting back, but there's only so much you can take when, Charlotte's goal is literally like, I'm going to end her. I'm going to snap her in half.
Yeah. And I think that Charlotte, we're going to talk about this later, but Charlotte is so like a more evolved version of her father in terms of like that part of her, the like, I will kill you to win and be champion and be the star, is very her father. But I feel like she's an even smarter version where like what she does, she just knows how to play people in a way that is like that character does. I don't know if she's actually like a conniving crazy person. That'd be weird. But yeah, I think she does a really good job of playing on people's emotions to get them to do stuff. And it's a really good character trait to have if you're a monster heel who's also like a thoroughbred heel, like a Randy Orton.
And she kind of has to, because she doesn't have like the Horsemen to back her up. She can't like she has to be able to deliver on any of her big talk or her schemes or anything like that, and she always does. It's interesting seeing a heel come back and succeed so many times against her opponents kind of being right. Charlotte is, it's not that Charlotte's never wrong, but she often seems to be right about things where she just is like, Sasha can't hack it against her. And that's fine, because maybe what we're going to see is that Bayley is the one who has Charlotte's number. And Sasha, maybe Sasha has Bayley's number now that, the NXT stage of their career has moved on and you're not tied to like, oh, this person is being promoted here and things like that. So there's ways to make it work where Charlotte really is just too brutal for Sasha, and maybe there's a payoff for it someday where Sasha, Sasha does beat her, but kind of in the end, like Charlotte seems to win these feuds, which is backwards. Yeah, there's ways to work it, just like there was with, the ex-Shield guys, where it seems like there's really a rock, paper, scissors thing going on with them.
Yeah, you always want rock, paper, scissors in triple threat situations. I'll tell you what, I think my highlight of the night was when Jericho came into the Hell Cell, because I didn't see it coming. I knew there was something up. Like, I was like, there's a reason they did this, but I didn't immediately go, oh, Jericho's coming out. And then he ran down and I was like, oh, that's why. I thought Kevin Owens was just being a jerk. I thought he just wanted to get out of the cell. Like, there was 1,000 different reasons he could have done something like that. I didn't immediately think, oh, Chris Jericho, they kind of were looking for an opening to get the ref out of the ring. This is their opening, now they're going to do it. I didn't see that coming, but it made sense. It wasn't out of nowhere, and that was my favorite part of the entire night. I remember actually perking up and be like, oh, that was good.
Good old smart heel wrestling. Come in with a plan. I always think of Spaceballs in situations like that, where it's like evil will always triumph because good is dumb.
Yep. And neutral even worse, because neutral's like, oh man, oh wait, no, there's Chris Jericho. And I like that all of the announcers, and I think this is the best part about Raw, actually, is all of their announcers, when they're... Because Corey Graves is a heel commentator, unequivocally, but he's a Jesse Ventura kind of heel commentator, where every once in a while he'll be like, you know what? This was wrong, or like, this made sense. So he can like be reasonable in a way that JBL can't. And I think they were all in agreement, like, oh no, this is totally legal. It sucks, but it's totally legal. I thought they played that really well, which made Foley yelling a little weird. But
I'll complain about that later.
Yeah, I figured. I didn't want to dip in your Kool-Aid too much. Yeah, so I just feel like they did just a really good job with that in a way that I wasn't expecting them to. I did not see that coming.
So, Raw?
Yeah, let's do Raw. Raw sounds good.
Hey, Raw was good.
Yes. I guess they listened to us and were like, you know what? We're going to have some storylines that make sense. Not a lot. We're not going to do anything crazy, but...
I just listened to this podcast and the math checks out. We suck.
Did you hear what they're saying on Rudo Radio? Sorry. That's my old-timey newspaper man voice. I don't know why a newspaper man would be working at the WWE, but I digress. So, did you have anything in particular you really liked this episode?
Yeah, I'll keep talking about Charlotte since we're pretty much on the subject. I love the dynamic they're setting up here, where Charlotte is the women's champion, so she's named captain of the Survivor Series women's team for Raw. That's a lot of descriptive words. So, she gets to pick who fills out the team. It seems like, the shows are doing things like different ways. Like some people Daniel Bryan filled out a team for the SmackDown men, and the tag teams are picking opponents and things like that, or they're having to enter their way in. But Charlotte apparently gets to go, okay, Bayley, I'm picking my weak link first, because Charlotte is a confirmed asshole. And then she also has Nia, which is great. And, you think, well, of course you want Nia. She hasn't been on Raw. She's hungry. She's been complaining on Twitter about not having any competition. And, this is her chance to prove that, she should be murder, death, killing people every Monday. It's a good way for Charlotte to be in Nia's good graces by being like, look at how I knew that you should represent Raw. Please don't come for my title yet. And I saw some complaints about why would Charlotte pit Nia and Bayley against each other in a match on Raw when they need to be strong for Survivor Series. I mean, we just talked about Charlotte being completely willing to destroy any relationship that she has with Sasha by taking her, just ruining her back and maybe ending her career in order to keep that title. That is the most important thing to her, is that title. That title and what she thinks of herself and her own self-worth is what made her drive her father away. It has made her drive everyone around her away, except for Dana Brooke, who is, super lackey.
Yeah, and she's been trying her darndest to push her away too.
Yeah, so having Nia and Bayley soften each other up, which hurts Bayley and keeps Nia from noticing the title maybe right away, is that's way more important to Charlotte than winning Survivor Series against SmackDown. Plus, it's Charlotte who has, an enormous ego. She probably assumes she can just handle Survivor Series pretty much on her own anyway, because who's over there who's going to stop her?
And she also has Nia, who she's not on the bench. She's like, I will feed you Bayley, I know who you want. And it's good healing. It's good old-fashioned knowing what the chess pieces are healing. And you gotta love it. You gotta love it. It's a beautiful thing when it's done correctly. It's just so hard to do correctly because so many of the machinations have been done. But I feel like they have a really great central character to have, which is Charlotte, because she's so talented that she can also just beat people. And she's kind of evil and absolutely brutal. So she can just kind of hurt people. She's not so much afraid of Nia as much as she doesn't want to deal with Nia's shit right now. Eventually, I think she'll be like, okay, well, come at me, Nia, and I will destroy you piece by piece. I'll just do it in a different way than someone like Bayley, who will keep coming at me, but I can beat her way easier.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's the kind of storytelling that Raw needs to be doing, where it's like, oh, this is clear, this is logical, and I can see where it's pointing, and not just next week. In the long run, you can see Charlotte's thinking way ahead here, beyond Survivor Series, and that's the kind of thing that Raw was missing last week and the week before and the week before that. But now we're done talking about historic history, so they've got more room for this
actual narrative that we'd be interested in on top of the totally good wrestling that they always have.
Mm-hmm.
For me, my favorite thing was the New Day's outfits for Halloween. It was so good. It was really the best thing ever. Ever, right? It was the best thing ever.
It was great, and I love that they did their dance at the end is different Godfather dance. Well, not different Godfather dances, but you know what I mean. The various moves and mannerisms of the character that they were.
yeah, because they dressed up as it was Kama Mustafa, Nation of Domination version, Papa Shango, and the Godfather. Biggie was Kama, Papa was Xavier, and the Godfather was, of course, the Godfather of their pops, Kofi Kingston. It was amazing, and I am so happy. And this is something I actually wanted to talk about because we disagreed in a way that we don't usually disagree, which is that I was totally happy and okay with them winning the titles, keeping the titles, especially the way they did during the pay-per-view, which I don't think you were as big a fan of.
I'm so tired of DQ wins, intentional DQ wins by the face team.
Are they really faces, though?
Yes.
Real faces, like John Cena faces, not faces like Stone Cold Steve Austin or people who cheat. People cheat all the time. I feel like that's...
I'm sorry, are they trying to move merch? Are they playing to the crowd constantly? Are they hanging around with faces at all times? Look at the reaction on Big E's face when Goldberg walked down the aisle. That tells you what side they're on.
I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, if they cheat in matches, I prefer this as my flaw for them being faces to horrifyingly homophobic and misogynistic jokes by the cool uncle, The Rock. I'll take this 100 times out of 100.
But that's not your option. You just picked a really terrible thing and then picked a less terrible thing. Yep, these are the only two paths they could have possibly taken.
Or, well, to use another, all faces have a fatal flaw in terms of them being good people. How many times...
It's the flaw Photoshop.
What was that?
It's the flaw Photoshop.
Yes, the flaw for John Cena is Photoshop. And also his insistence on challenging people's masculinity when they're not willing to fight. Like, there's a lot of... I can deal with dudes cheating, especially... And this was my larger point specifically with this match. I don't want to say it was justified, but Sheamus wasn't like a perfect angel.
No, he wasn't. I mean, I'm okay with... The thing that I'm fine with is... The finish is not a problem. It's more what the finish represents for, like, New Day gets to hold on to the goddamn belts for even longer is my issue with it.
And this is what I wanted to talk about.
Hold on.
Okay.
I didn't mind the finish because it is good in, like, the Sheamus Cesaro, like, these are two guys who aren't getting along because they're really on different parts of the morality spectrum in terms of, like, what you should do to win matches. So, like, that's fine. And I thought that was a better use of it than, like, oh, you bumped into me, oh, I'll puff up my chest, or you didn't tag me at the right time, or you tagged me too hard, or I'm on Facebook Live. Like, this was better than all that, whereas you just clearly had it laid out, like, Sheamus thought this was a good idea. Cesaro's like, what the F are you doing?
That's not how we do this, because we can do it the other way, and it's actually easier if you try.
Yeah, see, that was good, and it was good narrative, and it's the first bit of good narrative they've had in Sheamus Cesaro. The downside was the tag team championships aren't going to be on the line until, like, December, which means they're going to keep being annoyed at each other for another 6 weeks. Like, this is some, like, Groundhog in October bullshit.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they're booking. I'm not going to fantasy book, but I feel like this is a thing that they could deal with relatively quickly in terms of Sheamus and Cesaro booking a title match, which I think they might have already done at the next pay-per-view. So what happens is over the next month, you see Cesaro and Sheamus gel into Destroyers, and it looks like they're going to kill the New Day, and then you have a question of whether or not the New Day are actually going to break the record or come super close. But I think part of what I disagree with is I actually think that having them be the longest reigning champions is an incredibly valuable thing. Maybe not for Kofi, but for Big E and especially Xavier Woods, I feel like it's something that they can be attached to their name for the rest of their career in a way that'll be really positive for them. In a way that it helped out Booker T, Billy Ray when he was in TNA. They could say this guy's done it won a lot of championships or held the titles for really long, and it helps to put them out there more than they would otherwise. And I know that's not the best reason to have this storyline going, and I totally agree that their execution has been terrible, but I feel like that has to be acknowledged, if only because it makes everything make so much more sense. It'd be like if they were contractually obligated to hold the titles. I understand that it sucks, but I think there's a way to look at it more positively than that it's terrible to have the championships for another month. But that could just be me. I'm a really big New Day fan. So,
it's not that it's another month. It's another month after it was another month, after it was another month, after it was another month. Like, they're doing... I wouldn't mind them getting extending the record if it was done in a way where it's like, Nikki Bella was at least... That whole thing was interesting and entertaining, and there were good matches all the time. And if something bullshit happened, well, at least she was a heel. And here it's just not working like that, and I feel like they're just it's dragging out. And there's for me, yes, 10 years down the line, they can tell us how amazing and flawless this was in some network special, and that will have value to someone who doesn't remember what happened or wasn't there. But it's really aggravating to me in the present.
Oh, and I totally appreciate that. But I do also appreciate that, like, it bothers me when people don't understand the larger picture of why they have to do something, which is kind of terrible, like this.
They're not really doing it for that, though. They're doing it because, the current longest consecutive days guys have a lawsuit against WWE. And
don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Ugh, that's, I don't know. See? And even Nikki's was rooted in...
With that.
Yeah, I know. Even Nikki's was rooted in spite. So, as great as Nikki is, and I agree, like, she deserved it, and at least that was effective.
Yeah.
And that's the main difference for me, is I'm like, well, this is out of spite, and it'll work in the future, but at least it's damn entertaining. Whereas with this, I'm just like, oh, for the love of God, this is so, if there wasn't a trail of bodies behind the New Day of promising tag teams, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But like one of the feature matches in Hell in a Cell, the upside of it was, oh my God, maybe one of these teams will be dead in the water after because one of them has to win.
Yes, that is true. So now that we've gotten past all of that, which felt good, it felt good to do once every year or so. Did you have anything in particular you didn't like? The reason I ask is because I just can't stand Mick Foley, and I want to talk about
I mean, this could be a joint don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel so bad about not liking Mick right now, too, because it's Mick Foley. I love Mick Foley. God, I don't like this.
Yeah, he just seems to... There's just too much going on with that character, and only half of it seems motivated. And this is the thing that would help out Raw the most if they were to pick up an actual version of Talking Smack, would be that you could have Mick Foley sit down and explain himself the way that Daniel Bryan does every week. And it's so helpful for the overall quality of both Talking Smack and of SmackDown itself, because you get the motivations of the people in quote-unquote in charge. You get the motivations of the people on the show. You get to know them better. It gives them the mic for 5 to 10 minutes. It would be so much better for Mick Foley if he was co-hosting this with Michael Cole, somebody. I don't know who. They also need to figure out. You could even do Corey Graves, because they need to also figure out a.
Tom Phillips knows what he's doing. Like what's?
Yeah, they can use Tom Phillips. He seems generic broadcaster number one a little bit too much to me. He's like the poor man's Todd Grisham, which is not bad. Tom Grisham's on ESPN, but I feel like they could either use Byron or I prefer Corey. I think Corey's really good, and I think you want to put a heavy hitter on there. I don't know if Tom Phillips is comparable to Renee Young. She's really good. But I think Foley being on that show would be the important thing, because what he's talking about doesn't make any sense. There's no, like, inner life that we get to know about. He's just angry and yelly about things that are reasonable or things that people already know.
Yeah, Brandon Stroud wrote in Best and Worst for Hell in a Cell over at Wood Spandex about this, and he really nailed it. So, like, I'm not going to crib it. I'm just going to talk about it. Foley's acting like the Cell is this thing where only like amazing things happen there and legends are born, but it's also a place where like some of the dumbest shit WWE's done in hardcore matches has happened. Just dumb big boss man getting hanged, like
people getting shoved in other people's asses.
Yeah, it's just come on. It's not like I understand Foley has an emotional attachment to it because like yes, the Cell has literally almost killed him a few times, so he has this awe and respect, but like. Could Foley maybe express that with A, words, and B, a decibel level that doesn't make us all go like, dude, relax.
Yeah, he's super intense. And I don't know if it's so weird to have this like meta narrative happening where Vince is running Raw and you have the people who made NXT so great writing for SmackDown, where it's like, I don't know if they're just making him a crappy GM or if he's actually crappy at the role of GM, because like they have him do stuff all of the time where it doesn't seem like he understands what he's supposed to be doing, and I don't know if that's acting or not. It's so confusing. It's like he'll make decisions he's not supposed to, he'll say things he's not supposed to, and then he'll be like, oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that in the context of blank. And you're like, I don't know if this is kayfabe or not. It's really confusing me. I don't like it.
A perfect example of something that's scripted but makes no sense is, so we said Charlotte booking Nia and Bayley against each other makes a lot of sense because she doesn't give a shit about the Survivor Series team in comparison to even the slightest percentage increase that she gets to keep the women's championship. What is Mick Foley doing pitting Jericho and Roman Reigns against each other?
In a title match.
What is his endgame there? Like, yes. Because, I mean, do we not think, like, his job is in jeopardy if Raw loses any of these matches in any way? Because, he's the guy putting together teams.
And they're on... Yeah, he needs them to win. Charlotte doesn't need anything to happen for any reason. She's still going to be champion she'll already have been captain. She'll already be champion. She doesn't need to worry about not being champion if they lose. And she doesn't even have to, at this point, have to worry about, like, anyone doing anything to her if the team loses. Where his fate is somewhat tied, especially presumably for the men's division, to the success that they have. And you have like this. Why not just pick a better team that doesn't have half the people hate the other half, and then have them fight beforehand, like 2 weeks beforehand, have them fight for one of the guys' titles.
And it's technically at the disadvantage of Reigns, who had the Hell in a Cell match the night before, is the guy who could lose the title. And Foley's usually so super face, so like he can't even keep his ridiculous alignments in place. I just it's weird. I don't know what the deal is, and I wish they'd really sort him out. Daniel Bryan is such a better, more logical authority figure on the show, and they're both faces, so it's not some weird like face heel thing. And we talked a few weeks ago about like maybe some of these issues are things that like Stephanie can look deeper at, and we could get a bigger story about like Mick's insecurity being what's driving all this. But
exactly, that's what I want, and they just won't give it to us.
Yeah, because this has nothing to do with insecurity. This is just like that was a dumb decision. That is the booking decision that people thought Charlotte was making in terms of like it being wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real problem both for the show and in the content, like on the show. Yeah, I don't know what to do about it either. I also kind of hated the.
Hey, what? No,
I know.
You don't get two hate. You don't get two hates.
Can I mention the Trick or Street fight?
No, because I liked it.
Okay.
I'm not gonna talk about it, but I liked it. Don't hate on it.
All right. So
I like those gimmicky hardcore matches because they're low stakes and stupid, but they're like you don't see them very often, so even a bad one can be entertaining. Like I like the idea that they bring these things out that they don't really do all the time and just act like this is a well-known like fight.
Yeah, like like they're acting like it's a cage match.
Yeah,
of course, the Trick or Street fight.
And it's also dumb and corny, so corny. In this case, candy corny. Delete this podcast. Yeah, I don't know. I like those. It's good, dumb fun, and it's like a good way to. If you did it in hour 3 of a 3-hour show, it'd be bad. I don't care how good it is. It'd be bad, especially since a lot of the enjoyment is the announcers just cracking on it the whole time.
Yeah.
But them essentially opening with it after a segment that they liked at the beginning, like that was a good call. It's a good idea.
I guess I can ask it. Did you like the Goldberg, or did you have like? I don't know how I liked it, but I didn't like it.
I mean, except for him slipping, but like shit happens. Don't wear those shoes when you wrestle in 2 weeks, buddy.
Yeah, if you don't wear shoes at all, I don't know that you get some good grip. Yeah.
No, I liked it. I thought it was a much better job of selling people on the match than the previous week, because they did a good job of getting people to like boo Heyman and even boo Lesnar, really, and cheer Goldberg. And it's almost like not doing that in Lesnar's hometown is, step one. And Rusev, made Goldberg look as good as he could. And, you can only spear Heyman so hard, especially from that short of a distance. But, I thought the segment was good in terms of like what they said and what they managed. And maybe the part that annoyed me was finding out after that Goldberg was like, oh, I haven't started training yet. Oh, I'm fighting at Survivor Series 2016? Oh.
Against a demon? Okay, well, you're clearly going to have to put in 2-a-days. Yeah, not a great look, but not the end of the world. And yeah, the slip was just, it's going to happen. I wasn't like, oh, he's old, he's going to die. But I also think it's kind of good if, at least for someone like me, we're like, is he going to break is Brock Lesnar going to break Goldberg and have him be like another head on a pike like Undertaker and John Cena, like that, those level guys? Like that would be a good way to do it, to have him just be, completely destroyed by Brock Lesnar. I would totally enjoy seeing that. So I'd like it if they kind of have him be old man a little bit.
Yeah, I'd be down with it, especially if it's his last match. Like, let him go down fighting, but make it clear that, like, Lesnar's on another level. Because you can do that in a way where it's, like, it's not even anti-Goldberg. It's just Goldberg's time was before, and Lesnar's time is apparently right now.
is forever. That is his time, because he's a bull person gorilla, and he likes to smash. God, I love Brock Lesnar.
Do you have another like before we move to the blue brand?
I mean, I'm happy for Braun Strowman. I'm always happy for Braun Strowman, and I think I'll tell you what, I'll give you one I like. I liked this segment with Mick Foley and Braun Strowman. I think Braun Strowman is 100 million times better talker than he needs to be. Not that he's good or great or anything, but like he totally can say the lines that they give him. And for a guy that size, who can move pretty well, and he seems pretty good in the ring, to also have anything resembling a personality makes me actually really excited for him. It seems like they really like him. It seems like they're giving him a big push by putting him in this match and having him beat Sammy. I thought the way they did it was cool. I was very happy with the Braun Strowman, and I think he seems to be the one person that everybody can agree is doing well on Raw. Like, Braun Strowman's character really works.
Yeah, and he lost the Muppet voice too, so that's really good. Remember when he first came out, and it was like, that voice does not make sense with that man, and now he's like, that's not his voice, but that's fine. Like, you're an actor, or you're an actor now. You were a pro weightlifter and now a strongman.
Yeah, and he's incredible. Like, if he can really start to get it in terms of the way that like the Giant / Big Show and Kane, those type of really big guys got, like where they can gauge their strength and like put more emphasis on certain moves than others. I think he'll be incredible. I'm very excited for the direction of his career. Yeah, that was to me actually probably the highlight of Raw, but for me, because I really love Braun Strowman. And then SmackDown, another like 20 and 10 episode where, nothing super crazy. It's not like anybody blew the doors off the place, but a really solid performance from top to bottom. Everybody looked good. Some stuff was really good. Some stuff was not as good, but it kept a good, steady pace.
Yeah, it accomplished the things that we talked about last week, where it was like, okay, so this segment was just okay, but it pushed forward. It moved the narrative forward. So it accomplished something, and it was an obvious accomplishment and not something you have to like stretch for. And, in a week where you don't do a ton, that's great. And this is probably a good week to do it too, because Sunday was just hell in a cell, so people might be a little tired by this point in the week of like, hey, 3 hour event and 3 hour event, and now they're watching on Tuesday. So something simple that just moves forward is good, good time to do it.
Which is why I liked the no DQ match with Randy and the Wyatt family against Kane. I thought that, I don't know how close they're actually going to get to putting Randy Orton in the actual Wyatt family, but I like the idea of it. It feels palpably awesome. Like, it could be a really cool thing. Like, it feels as though that moment where Bray turned Roman Reigns into a human missile. Do you remember that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Do I remember it?
Well, I'm just making sure.
Do I remember the greatest spear of all time?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
That level, that's the cool thing with the Bray character, is that he seems like he's on those guys' level, even if he doesn't win. Like, you could see them wanting to join him, and there's not, I didn't love everything, which I'll get to in a little bit. I thought that they did an exceptional job of making me interested in what that could be. Like, him hitting the RKO and then doing the weird pin, and them doing the awesome their poses at the same time, was it all like fits together. Where if they can get the timing down and they actually let it grow a little bit, even if it's just like a couple of month thing and then he's off for friggin', I don't know. Well, maybe he kills him with Glasgow, but maybe he's off for a couple of months. They do something to Royal Rumble, and then WrestleMania is where they blow it off. That would be cool. I'd totally like that. And I think it would be a really cool thing to build up both guys. And you could also use this to turn Randy back into, like, murder Randy, which would be a great day in the morning for me.
It feels like he joined for real. I know he doesn't have a huge beard, and he's showered, but it seems like he's joined the Wyatt family. And that's a good evolution for the Wyatts to make, where it's like, oh, we're not just taking this like disenfranchised, like forgotten, misunderstood piece of society and making them part of the Wyatt family. This is Randy Orton going to be like, hey, I really like that whole satanic thing you have going on. I'm really into that. So you know what? Yeah, I'll help you. Satan, hail Satan. Awesome.
Hail Satan. Sorry. Yeah, and I really think that like a tag team involving, even like a tag team match involving those two would be super awesome. I am very excited if they are going to be all in the Survivor Series match together, that they all work together. Because Randy Orton's also like one of the all-time, because he works with so few people, he's one of the all-time, oh wow, that's really cool, I've never thought of seeing them tag together guys, like he did with John Cena, where they had the thing where John Cena would like FU guys onto Randy Orton, who would RKO them at the same time. It was really glorious, and I think this would be a perfect example of a tag team where you'd be allowed to do that just for like a little bit. I really want them to tag. I'm very excited about what this could mean, in case you didn't notice.
It would be a good way if you had them tag and actually go after the titles. It would be a good way to get real heel heat on them by having them beat Heath and Rhino. You have two guys who are clearly at a level capable of stopping Rhino. And then you also can avoid a situation where like the Usos win and then you wonder why American Alpha's not going after the titles right away. Kind of it delays things further. So if you really want your big SmackDown thing to be Usos Alpha at whatever big show you want to do it at, you don't have to rush into it. And it gives these guys something to do. And also Bray Wyatt would win a friggin' title in WWE for the first time.
Yeah, that'd be real special. Even if it was just a tag team title. No, it's weird for me with a guy that stature to have it be the tag team title be the first one he gets, because he's already
more big guys should win tag team titles. I don't know why they've gone away from it. What's the last super team that won tag team titles, like main event guys that they put together and they won tag team titles?
It's been a while. It's been long enough that I don't totally remember.
I think it was Team Hell No. I think that was the last one.
And let's not forget Beauty and the Man Beast are total main eventers.
How many WWE champions are in that tag team?
Rhino's an ECW.
But is he that ECW champion?
I think he's both, but yeah, definitely bad ECW.
Like at least Bryan at the time, like he hadn't won the WWE championship, but he'd won the big gold belt.
Yes.
So that was two main event guys on a team. And you don't always have to go to that, but every now and then you should put guys that level in. And like, yeah, maybe it's a little weird that Wyatt's first title would be that, but he is a main eventer, title or no.
Yes.
So let him and Randy just run over the division.
Yeah, and then eventually have somebody take them down, or have themselves take each other down. Was there anything you felt as strongly as I did about?
A positive way? Yeah. I really like what's going on with the Survivor Series team with the women, because they've done such a good job of actually having a full division instead of two women with special guest Nia. So you're like, oh, how are these women actually going to interact with each other at the show? And you're not just saying that because it's like, oh, these ones are heels and these ones are faces. You're like, no, they're literally all feuding against each other, like right now. And they've been told by their bosses, like, hey, cut that shit out for just a little bit of time because you all have to work together now. And then Taya's out there all like, can you follow my cat on Twitter? And also, can I coach the team? And me and Becky are totally BFFs now. You guys missed that because I haven't been on television, but it happened.
After I tried to murder her several times.
Yeah, it didn't work, and I got over it. It was just a thing. But there's so much intrigue there because you do wonder how well can they work together? Because how much do Alexa Bliss and Carmella actually care about winning that match? And how much do they care about making Nikki Bella and Becky look like shit at a huge event? How much does Natalya actually want to be there to support them, or is this her revenge? Is this her moment for revenge in front of a huge audience where she's not even part of the team really, so why should she care? And she starts a feud with someone out of that.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on there. Like, what are these relationships going to look like? What's going to come out of it? It's all very intriguing. It's very well put together, and it's great to see the entire division involved already too, because we've got weeks to think about how they're going to interact.
Yeah, in a good way, it feels like they've put this ragtag bunch of people together for a heist, where like everybody has their role, and there's like internal rivalries and internal friendships that don't totally make sense outside the context of the group. Like Alexa and Carmella being friends doesn't totally make sense, but it totally works because they're both terrible people who don't like the good people on the show, so they have like a reason to come together that goes beyond just them both being heels. And I think that will be really interesting, especially because of how crazy Natalia's character is about to get. I don't know if you had a chance to watch Talking Smack, but holy jeez, has Natalia went round the bend. It is intense.
That's good, because I don't quite buy her as like a sincere good guy, and I don't quite buy her as a like malevolent force, but something in between, just like petty, mean, her total Divas character, essentially. Just clueless, lashing out, kind of mean, not really a bad person in the end, but like that's a good use of Natalya. So, they've hinted at this character for Natalya over the last couple of years in WWE, so it'd be good if they actually stuck with it. And it feels like SmackDown, there's a better chance because they don't stop-start stories and they try and keep all the women involved, as we were just saying. So if Natalya's found, gone back to something that works for her, she'll probably keep doing it. And I'm very interested to see when she officially loses it, or if she's just been planning all along to, she hasn't lost it. She's just planning all along to turn on the entire team and show Daniel Bryan what he gets for not just trusting her.
Yeah, what a jerk. What a jerk. I am, but like so, because I'm David Foster Wallace, everybody. There's something I should be honest about, which is that although I love what they did with Randy, I'm also nervous about Luke Harper and what his whole thing is. I get that he's trying to protect Bray, but it feels a little forced, and it's the one thing that doesn't totally make sense to me, because I don't understand the relationship, I guess, outside of the context of each other. I don't understand how Luke Harper views his relationship with Bray. It's kind of confusing for me, and I think they're not quite hitting the right notes with Randy. I think the idea that Bray wouldn't know that he needs to be suspicious of Randy is kind of silly, and they're playing the hand a little too much with like the way Luke's getting involved and being like, he's my friend. Yeah, I'm watching you.
I can see it as being that Harper feels threatened because Wyatt usually recruits people. And Orton seems to have invited himself to the party.
That's actually a really good point. I had not thought about it that way. That's that definitely could be it, and it would make sense for the dichotomy between the two characters, because other than that, it's just like, why are you? Yeah, everybody knows Randy Orton's a bad guy. He's like one of the longest running bad guys on the show. Even when he's a good guy, he's not a good guy. He's just a guy who doesn't hate the fans. He still like cheats and hurts people and RKOs people out of nowhere. It's not like he's like a bright and shiny person.
Like he said, he's had the devil speaking in his ear, and it's a lot of work for him to ignore it. It's just so much work, and he's been wrestling too long to put in that kind of work. So now he's just going to listen to the devil.
Yeah, it's would recommend listening to the devil inside of you if you're oldish as a professional wrestler, because you might RKO somebody to heaven. I don't know. Oh no, just kidding. Hell, I would assume you'd RKO him to hell.
Hopefully, I mean that's the effective way to do it.
Yeah.
Plus, there's the dropping motion, so
Yeah, it'd be hard to do like a reverse RKO where you're like, and not snapping their neck in half.
Unless all of theology is wrong. Randy's been sending them to hell. But it's not that kind of podcast, so we're not gonna continue with that line of thought. So the headbangers. I'm kind of bored with the headbangers. Nothing wrong with the headbangers, and it was kind of, this is nitpicky just because SmackDown, like we said, it wasn't the best episode, but there was nothing like outright shit on it. I just feel like throwing the headbangers out there is going, hey, the Usos are going to qualify for the Survivor Series team, and not in the most entertaining way. The entertaining way would have been like having some jobbers that the Usos could just do something terrible to, like just kick their knees in immediately. Short match like that.
We just want to see him kick people's knees in.
Yeah.
I thought Freeze Dango. Where's Freeze Dango? Freeze Dango is available.
No, they're not. They're not. Have you been following?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I feel like
they were dealing with their fashion police officially now. I don't know if anyone has been paying attention to the videos that are coming out, but they are fashion police. They are dressed in like stripper cop uniforms. Like they're both pulling
not like stripper cop uniforms.
Yeah,
Those are stripper cop uniforms.
I hope they both have the gob blue stripper pants.
It's so, if you guys haven't seen them, just go to YouTube and look up like Freeze Dango or Tyler Breeze and Fandango, because man, what beautiful, beautiful job they're doing with that tech. It's so good because Fandango goes head first into everything. It reminds me in the best possible way of the obvious Zoolander relationship with Owen Wilson's character, but like not in a derivative way, but in that they have the same beautiful dynamic of just like really stupid people running headlong into each other.
It's fantastic, and neither of them misses a beat with anything. There's no idea too stupid or out there, and they're both just so on board. They're so on board with everything the other one wants to do. But yeah, they're finding people committing crimes against fashion. Yeah,
they are team yes and I think would be the best way to describe them. Because they're like, yeah, let's do this crazy thing. And it's funny because they'll try to get like the interviewers into their crazy schemes. They'll be like, come with me. You need to come with me, Todd. Terry, follow me.
It's so great that they're still doing something, even though they're not on television right this second. But, they'll come back. They'll figure, just like the Bad News Barrett thing a couple of years ago. They'll refine this on videos and in small things, and then it'll move from social media to TV. I think it's very easy to forget how big WWE's social footprint is. They have like 32 million likes on Facebook. They have a Twitter account with a few million followers. Both Fandango and Tyler Breeze have their own Twitter accounts that they can send things out from. This is no small thing. Their YouTube channel has 10 million subscribers. They're not getting 32 million people watching Raw or SmackDown every week, but these people are logged into Facebook or Twitter all day. They are checking YouTube or have a subscription to certain channels. They're seeing this stuff. It doesn't come out of nowhere for everybody. And reactions online are a good way for them to do this sort of thing where they can build it up in front of an audience, but not in front of like the normal audience.
Yeah, they did it with Bad News Barrett, and if you didn't get hurt, that would have been a hugely successful. That is super over. They've done stuff like this before, where the people who care tell them enough, this is really good, keep doing it, and they'll give it a whirl, especially on a show like SmackDown, which seems a lot less risk-averse. They seem to have the NXT, whatever's working, just go with it, which is why James Ellsworth has been involved in the main event the past couple of weeks. I thought done a pretty good job with it. They just go with what's working and try to figure out why it's working, and not milk it until there's nothing left, but understand how to use that to bridge to the next thing that's working. And I think, I kind of lost my train of thought.
I'm just going to use that for my other I guess, because we don't want to make this episode too long. So yeah, I had both my dislike and my like in the same logical extension there.
Beautiful. I really love talking smack so much. Dean Ambrose this week in particular, he, and I said this to you, he is so face Rowdy Piper. It's unreal. Like it is he captures the essence, which is like a rascal. He's just a ne'er-do-well who's there to like push people's buttons. But if you see like his treatment of James Ellsworth, he's not. And you said this last week. This is him deciding, I'm going to be a good guy. I'm going to not be a bully. I am going to not be a nice guy, but I'm not going to pick on somebody that doesn't deserve it. And I'm going to give credit where it's due. And I'm not going to overreact to things, even though I'd be well within my powers. And he did a really good job of explaining that while also doing like the lunatic crazy person thing, because he goes on an extended riff about ripping off James Ellsworth's arms and beating him with them, to the point where Renee breaks character basically and is just laughing hysterically. It works really well. He's really good. He's starting to get the calibrations right for goofy while still being violent. The Deadpool factor of like making jokes that are dark and also funny, not just dark or funny.
Yeah, it's harder on WWE television these days to do things like have Dean Ambrose interacting with the police. It is easy on WWE TV these days to have Dean Ambrose talking to some random backstage employee about like, so then I said to the police officer, man, you can't even search my vehicle.
He really works, and Talking Smack continues to just be so good. It would be the number one thing that would make Raw better as far as I'm concerned if they had an equivalent show. I'd honestly do a pre-show with it, so you get people to get interested in watching Raw, and I would...
they do a pre-show, but it's not that. It's like...
Yeah, that's just a normal pre-show. I would change the Raw pre-show into an explanation of some of the crap that's going to happen tonight. Because you know what SmackDown doesn't do? Spend 25 minutes explaining what the rest of the show is going to be. They just do the show. And Raw doesn't, and I think they could use this. And then reset when they need to on the actual show. What's going on? People don't need to know that there are matches per se, but they need to know that someone planned this card out beforehand. Because I think the weirdest thing that happens on Raw, and it's something to bring him up again, Brandon Stroud always talks about, which is like, did they plan the show before it started? Like, if they weren't going to have this one-on-one with The Undertaker or a tag team match, what would the main event have been? And I think that's a problem that SmackDown doesn't have. But Raw could get away with not having to do it a lot more if they had stuff happen on a Talking Smack level pregame show where they could show clips or they could talk about what happened for the people at home and the people watching the show in the arena. Whatever. They'll figure it out. They can figure it out on SmackDown. I think they can figure it out on Raw.
Here's the downside to that. Raw is already 3 fucking hours long. That's all I've got. Raw is 3 goddamn hours long, Nick. I don't want more Raw, even if it makes sense. I want them to take the Raw they have and make it make sense.
Well, that's not going to happen. That's like, I want to float away as a fairy. It's not going to happen.
Although, there is a way that Raw might be improving indirectly.
Yeah. With a really interesting name. And it actually goes along with the SmackDown Live, because when you told me about it's Live 205 or 205 Live?
205 Live, yeah.
205 Live. When you mentioned it to me, you said, now Talking Smack is going to go to 11. And I'm like, I wonder why. Like, is it a wrestling show or is it another talking show? Because when you said SmackDown Live is going to go to 11, I thought instantly of these go to 11?
11 p.m., Nick.
Okay, well, now I know. But when you were first telling me, I was like, what is he? Yeah, I guess. It's pretty awesome. But, like, I don't think they're going to, like, turn up the heat. But no, 205 Live seems like a really good idea. It's essentially a NXT for cruiserweight, the cruiserweight division, more or less. Am I correct in?
Well, it's not. It's not. I don't think it's a developmental show. Although technically it could be used for that if they're trying to get the jump on someone from the indies. They just want them to have a WWE association.
I meant more in a WWE Network exclusive show that features wrestling for an hour.
Yes, it is that. It seems like a good idea, because a big complaint we've had about the cruiserweight division is that we don't know who these people are. And throwing them in 6-man tag matches does not help us understand who these people are. Sunday and Monday were the first 2 times we ever had any real character motivation between Brian Kendrick and TJ Perkins, other than they were used to be friends.
Video games!
So it's a big deal, I think, if you have the cruiserweights on Raw still, but you use them in kind of like showcase matches, but not like 6-man tag showcase matches, but like, here's a clip from last week's 205 Live, and now they're wrestling on Raw for a reason, a story reason. And, then people go, oh, I gotta go, I should watch this 205 Live and see what happened. It funnels people over to that show. You probably not going to get like a huge audience out of it, but more of your Raw audience will see it. The Cruiserweight Classic audience I think that was the highest rated show on the network while it was running for those 10 weeks. That audience will be back. It's a different style of wrestling again. I think it's the kind of thing where, like the fans of the Japanese style are more into it. It's this hard hitting, fast paced, people in the indies really like the Cruiserweight Classic. It was indie guys doing it. It's a different look for WWE to have. And in this era, that makes so much sense. Raw and SmackDown are so different on purpose. As Nick has said before, Raw's a variety show. SmackDown is the wrestling show. NXT is this developmental show where they can take some risks, and you can see some people who are a little greener, but you can see them coming along. It's the minor league baseball of wrestling. And this cruiserweight show is more than just about having people 205 pounds and under. It's about the style that they will wrestle. It'll be this hard hitting, fast paced Japanese / indie / lucha, whatever they want it to be, just like the Cruiserweight Classic itself was. And it's a way to get it on Raw into the consciousness of the WWE universe at large, but also give people who don't really watch WWE a reason to have the network. And that's really the huge part of it.
Yeah, it gives them a lot of hours of non-WWE, WWE wrestling. Oh, or not a lot, but 2 hours a week is a lot, I would say. And I had a friend, I think I mentioned him last week, he watched Talking Smack, and it spoke to him in a way that other stuff doesn't, because he doesn't need to know the storylines of what's going on in WWE. And I think and I've showed him episodes of NXT, and he's also enjoyed those. And I think the Cruiserweight division is a very good way to get both people who like wrestling a lot to watch more wrestling on the WWE network, and also as a way to be like, hey, you should check out this show, it's really good. And then you have them watch and they're like, oh, I didn't know WWE wrestling was like that. And you're like, it's not, but you can totally get the network, and it has like all of the old stuff you might have liked when you were a kid and completely stopped watching, and a lot of other stuff from a lot of different places. It sells the network, I feel like, to people who were ever interested in wrestling and people who are just junkies like you and I, who are just like, cool. I mean, not cool. We're kind of tired. Another extra hour is a lot, but we can get through it in a way that, like, if this was hot, not even hot, I don't even know what the equivalent of if this was another hour of Raw, we'd be like, no, I will burn your house down.
Yeah, and being on the network means you don't have to watch it after SmackDown if you don't want to.
Exactly.
I barely watch NXT on Wednesdays right now. If I know we're gonna talk about NXT on the podcast, and I'll make sure I'm caught up. But I watch that when I have time, and I'll probably do that with this too. And the network, they're WWE's in control of their own numbers and everything for the network. So as long as people are watching it, I don't think they care if they're watching it at 10 o'clock every Tuesday. Or if someone goes, hey, you know what I'm going to watch while I'm waiting for NXT to show up on the network? I'm going to watch 205 Live.
Exactly.
Or if they go, oh, Talking Smack's at 11 now, I should really go to bed. But then they watch it in the morning on their phone or like at their desk, because the network is all over the place. It's important for them to continue to build up reasons to have the network beyond the pay-per-views, especially as NXT goes further and further, and this isn't a negative, but it goes further and further into being very developmental again.
Yes. And a year from now it'll be different, but yeah, it gives them another thing on the network that's like a restaurant quality. Yeah, and it's a big WWE will reach the point, and they may have already, where they are content creators more than they are a wrestling company per se. Like the individualized whole, like the whole WWE being this monolithic thing, those days are essentially over. You have different people running different shows and having more of a hand. It's no longer the voice of God. There's a lot of people involved in all of the moving parts. Yeah, you have guys like Matt Bloom, Prince Albert down in NXT, and he has a lot of say. You have Triple H, you have Stephanie. You have a lot of people involved in the running of the corporation, and it's becoming more and more like a Netflix or an HBO for wrestling specifically. Where you have these individual networks, let's call them like Shikaratopia, is going to be more valuable to Shikara, if not already, than their live shows are. Their live shows are the shows that they're producing because the live crowd's part of the show. And I think WWE has gotten better and better at recognizing when they have a hot property, for instance, the Cruiserweight Classic, and going, okay, let's try to put this up there. Okay, well, it's not really working. Why isn't it working? It worked another place. And that's kind of always been the case for WWE, is once something works, they will figure out how to make it keep working. This WWE Network allows them to do that over and over and over again with a bunch of different stuff. If, like you said, they're in control of their numbers. So if if the 205 Live doesn't, like, break the doors off the network, it's not a big deal. They can either try more of it next year, or they can just kind of walk away from it and do something slightly different or completely different. But they're way more able to try stuff and get it delivered to their users. And I think the network more and more is just going to become what you think about when you think of the WWE.
It's the way to do it too. People are cutting cords. People are finding reasons to not have a cable box. You never know, NBC, Universal doesn't want, they don't want to get rid of, as much as people complain about the ratings for like Raw and SmackDown, those are two of the bigger shows on NBC, Universal, on USA. Like they don't want to get rid of those, but you never know what the future holds for any of this stuff. WWE is really just setting themselves up for that future where everyone is a la carting everything. Yes.
And they are light years ahead of any other entities, really, outside of like Major League Baseball is and correct me if I'm wrong, is like the best regarded of the streaming services, at least in my experience. I've always had a fantastic experience with MLB at bat on all of my different devices, and they were actually the ones that helped with the WWE Network. Advanced Media did, at least. So, like, you have this really strong infrastructure for a product enough people want that you can have it going continuously and always kind of grow it. And eventually, if you have to pull yourself off network, you can do that. You can do that. It maybe not be healthy, super healthy. You might go through some lean times, but you'll have a constant revenue stream that you can supplement in different ways. Perhaps selling advertisements on the WWE Network, and it might evolve, but I believe that the health of the WWE Network, which is bolstered by stuff like 205 Live, not 2005 Live, 205 Live. All of this stuff is good for the network, which is good for the company, because the company is going to become the network sooner or later.
Yeah, I mean, it happened with, you mentioned MLB Advanced Media. That is like a completely separate company from MLB now. And that's where a lot of MLB's money and revenue comes from, is MLB Advanced Media. That's powering the NHL streaming. It's powering WWE streaming. Like, they're only going to get bigger. Disney just bought a huge chunk of them. It's money. It's so much money, and it is the present and it is the future, and WWE's moving along on that.
Yeah, and it's felt like one of the first times where the WWE has recognized the future is now, and is just like actually pushing towards. But then you think about, well, cable, they were one of the big proponents in the beginning, as were all wrestling, but WWE in particular, pay-per-views. They've always been kind of on the cutting edge, because the goal is just to get it into your eyeball spaces. And this is another way to get it into your eyeball spaces. So, very excited. I will be watching it live, at least the first couple of episodes. I think it'll be cool. I think it'll be really cool for people to see these performers be both regimented in the sense that they're, like, corralled into one show, but not regimented in the sense of, like, oh, what's-his-face is going to lose, of course, because he's facing this much better guy in a single elimination tournament.
I just want Cedric Alexander versus Drew Gulak for 10 minutes, for 12 minutes, for whatever. And I wanted to have stakes. I just want it to matter and for other people to care. And this feels like the best chance for that to happen. And then, maybe it translates to Raw. And the two kind of feed each other in terms of audience. And, WWE's happy and so is everyone watching it.
Yep, that's all you can ask for. Do you have anything else you wanted to add about 205 Live? Or is it time to hit that old dusty trail?
Well, it's not dusty, nor is it a trail. I live in a pretty established suburb, but yeah, let's call it an episode.
So you're calling my house dirty, first of all.
You did.
Second of all, wow, you were very rude. Where can they find you on the internet, Marc?
On Twitter at Marc_Normandin. That is Marc with a C. You can find my wrestling writing at sbnation.com/wrestling. You can find other SB Nation wrestling writing at cagesideseats.com. We'll be doing some features on Survivor Series since it's one of the big four. I know, you're laughing, but hey, Lesnar versus Goldberg is gonna main event it, and they're gonna treat it like a big four. So let's give them the respect they're hoping for, and they better not betray our trust.
I'm really sorry. They totally will.
That wasn't your plug time. Don't do that. That's speaking of rude. It's podcast etiquette being broken right there. You keep your plugs now.
There seems like a lot of anger towards the WWE. Did they hurt you? Did they hurt you, Marc?
Podcast etiquette, Nick.
Well, let me think. Okay, so there's Twitter. Hold on. Let me get the spelling right. THEN1CKSTER. That's my Twitter handle. Did you
have to look at that?
No, I had to think about it for a second. I'm not a strong out loud speller. I'm an excellent real life speller, but I was once in a spelling bee and I spelled hostage starting with an O, and then I said "oh shit" into the microphone. I was in 5th grade, so there's that. Yeah.
I was hoping...
Real proud moment for my family.
I was hoping, for wrestling purpose, that you spelled it with 2 S's.
Hostage. Yeah, so that's the 1 millionth time I've gotten that correct in a row, so I'm very proud of myself. I'm a great speller, like I said. And you can catch us on soundcloud.com/Rudo Radio. That's RUDORADIO. And you can rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Marc, do you have a review?
Both of these podcast hosts qualify for 205 Live.
Maybe.
No,
I don't.
Nobody knows that, Nick.
No, they've seen pictures of me. I'm a fatty. It's fine. I'm okay with my body. But I'm not 205 pounds. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Marc. I'm gonna have to. I guess if there's nothing left to say, there's only one thing left to say, which is bye.